Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world and whether you're able to turn on your computer or not. Welcome to episode number 12 of the Unboxing AI webinar series. My name is Vidur. I serve as the Chief Executive Officer at CARPL. We use this webinar series to call some of our friends, collaborators, partners, customers, uh, get them to share their journeys, why most of them have decided to dedicate their lives to AI and where the future lies. So thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Kevin, for joining. Today we have with us Kevin Harris. Kevin is the founder and CEO of a company we hold in very high regard, CureMetrix. They started more than 10 years ago, I think, Kevin. And Kevin himself I have his description here, has over 20 years of experience, leadership experience, and is a cognitive scientist by training. So did
That's
a
right.
bachelor's in cognitive science from UCSD, and worked at Silicon Space, ICW, which is the insurance company of the West, and San Diego Foundation, and has been working in the startup field for almost 15 years. So thank you, Kevin, for joining. And those of you on looking at this video, um, first and foremost, if you don't know what CARPL is, well, we are nothing but the interconnecting layer between healthcare providers and this vastly complicated AI ecosystem that exists in the world of radiology. And we work with almost 60 plus companies now, about 125 solutions, bring them into healthcare providers across the world. So, and Kevin and his company are one of our closest, most prestigious collaborators. Thank you, Kevin, once again for joining.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It's a great honor to be here with you. We have worked very hard to cultivate relationships with players like yourself, and have as you and I were talking about in one of our previous conversations. AI and the platform space has finally come together and caught up, or at least the market has caught up with what we knew a long time ago. And so the opportunity is finally here for us to help change healthcare through tools like ours and platforms like yours to really make an impact.
No, I think, Kevin, uh, that's actually put really well, right? I think all of us were kind of waiting for the that inflection point in terms of where demand supply mismatch matches with AI capability and also AI awareness. But Kevin, before we go deeper into all of that cool stuff, we start these webinars. Now it's no longer a surprise for people. We start these webinars by asking our guests to describe what they do as if they were telling a 5-year-old. And I have learned that it's very difficult for people to do that also. But yeah, would love to take for you to take a shot. What do you do as if you were telling a 5-year-old?
Sure. I mean, you have to think about the context of a 5-year-old, right? And what they know in this world, and what their world consists of. So I think if I was describing what we do to a 5-year-old, I would say, imagine you had all of your toy trucks in a row, and you had 100 toy fire trucks, and somebody snuck into all of your toy fire trucks a police car, and they wanted you to find that police car instantly. But imagine if that police car had been painted red, so it matched all the fire trucks. So it looked very similar to the fire trucks and was just like all the fire trucks, but just a little bit different. And you had, just seconds to figure out of these 100 trucks which one was the police car and not the fire truck. And it's hard, right? You, for the 5-year-old, for anybody to go through and instantaneously pick out the thing that doesn't match like everything else. And so what our AI does is it imagine being able to do that in a more automated sense, and give you that answer very quickly. We take an image, a picture of, in our case, the breast, the mammogram. But if this was the picture of all the fire trucks, we take that image and run it through our algorithm, and instantaneously we can find that thing that doesn't belong. And so that's what we do.
No, that is probably the best description I've heard. When I was five, my dad, who's a radiologist, he just used to tell me he fixes radios for a living.
That's
So,
funny.
so Kevin, you know, you you worked in tech, your entire life, and 10 years
I
ago,
have.
10 years ago, you decided to, venture into healthcare, especially like solving one of the most difficult and profound problems out there. Like breast cancer continues to be one of the leading killers of women globally. Why?
This was both a personal and a professional journey. Uh, I live in San Diego, and I've done a whole host of different types of companies and run a variety of companies over the last 30 years. Consulting companies, insurance, construction project management, kind of all across the board. But what's most interesting about San Diego is that we're a hub for biotech. And I thought, over the course of my career, over that arc, I've never really done anything in healthcare or health tech. And so I really wanted to. And sometimes when you put things out to the universe, they manifest for you. And, right as I was telling myself that, the opportunity came along to start up CureMetrix, in partnership with some of our early funders and early scientists. We came together to try and see, okay, well, what can we do with some of the tech that we have, and what problems can we solve? And here's what's really interesting. If you go back 10 years, 10 years ago, AI really wasn't a thing, right? In fact, when we started CureMetrix, we were doing predictive modeling and predictive analytics, still using algorithms, but really just kind of playing with big data with algorithms, and had done some work for hospitals here in San Diego. And it was interesting work, but it turned out it was going to be much more of a consulting type project than a product. And when we started this company, we really wanted to do a product. So I sat down with the data scientists, and we looked at what their tech could do. And, these data scientists, we had guys who had been working for NASA, NIH, DOD, doing space weather prediction and looking at,
Yeah.
large computer simulations, large images, and doing image analysis. And so, got the wheels spinning, and I thought, okay, if they're doing image analysis, computer vision, and if you look 10 years ago, as this started to evolve, the cost of storage was coming down, the cost of processing was coming down, the availability was coming down. And as you said earlier, I do have a degree in cognitive science, so I had some inkling of what AI was. We brought all this together and thought, what if we could actually put together an AI algorithm that could solve something in the image world? And so we started looking around at all the different types of imaging, and we settled on mammography primarily because, for two reasons. One, it had a personal meaning for me. We had members of my family, as I'm sure many of the people on the call or on the webinar today have been touched by breast cancer. But two, from a business perspective, there's 41 million mammograms a year that happen in the US year after year after year.
Wow.
So this seemed like a pretty good opportunity. If you could build something, there's a huge market and a huge recurring market if we could solve a problem here. And when you looked at the false positive rates and the false negative rates across the market for mammography, there seemed like there was a real opportunity to infuse change into the system.
So that's very interesting, Kevin. And like, I'd love to go like one layer deeper into what have been like, because 10 years is a long journey and AI is just starting, right? So for folks out there, who may be on the fringe about starting something of their own or not starting something of their own, today, when AI is actually a word, right? I think when you probably started, you probably called yourselves a CAD company, if I can take that liberty. But uh, what would you tell them, right? From a patient's or a return perspective, or just some of the inflection points that you've seen across the past decade?
Yeah, so a couple points. First, yeah, we did call ourselves a CAD company. In fact, we trademarked the phrase "CAD that works," because you had looked at 25 years of CAD in the market that didn't work, and we were going to be the first one that actually works. I think if you're trying to start an AI company, you have to recognize the difference between a project, a product, and a business. Um,
Hmm.
there's a lot of people out there right now. There's a lot of tools. There's a lot of ways where, I don't know, a 15-year-old can build an AI algorithm, right? You can do stuff with Chat GPT. There's a lot of AI out there that are projects, and they're fun. They're interesting. Maybe even they're pivotal and telling. But converting a project to a product takes a lot of work, right? There's a lot of rigor that has to go through. There's a lot of, as you probably know from our experience, there's FDA compliance, there's quality management systems, et cetera. That all has to happen as you move from a project to a product. But just having a product isn't enough. Then you have to build a business. And a business involves all the marketing, all the sales, the all the training, the hiring, the operational procedures to actually bring something like this to market at scale, building partnerships like we have so that you can actually have an impact in healthcare. So, I mean, it is definitely a journey to make all this work in the right way.
Oh, I think that's supremely insightful, Kevin. Like, uh, I am just be a cool title for this webinar, right? Project, product, business, right? That full journey. And I think maybe today it's accelerated for folks starting today, but you can't go from project to business without having a product, right? And we're seeing like some of the world's greatest products, right? Like today, CrowdStrike. Uh,
Absolutely.
literally the world is screwed. so so, and in our industry, as we were talking, right, the amount of rigor that we have to go through just to make that jump from project to product with FDA approvals and safety and 27,000 ones and 13485s and stuff like that is so that's very insightful. I want to switch gears a little, Kevin, and ask you. I think we've got a question as well, but uh, and ask you a little bit about about our work in Brazil, right? Uh, so CureMetrix, of course, your primary product is breast cancer detection characterization. But for those of us who don't know about CM angio product, we're seeing a bunch of traction through CARPL in Brazil. So, would love for you to articulate the value proposition for those who don't know and what is it exactly that the product does and why maybe, it's getting the kind of traction that it's getting.
Sure. And I think it's worth noting. Let me go back a little bit in our journey, right? So, as you said, our primary product is breast cancer because when you're working in mammography, that's the obvious place to start. And so we built a whole suite of products around helping radiologists with the detection, the prioritization, et cetera, around breast cancer. But when we started down this journey on breast cancer and mammography, it's more than just that narrow focus. It really was from a mission statement for the company to really look at women's health. If you're going to go in and you're going to tackle mammography, we don't just want to be a tool. We want to be something that actually changes healthcare, improves outcomes for patients. And so we took a step back and said, okay, as a company, what should be our mission? And our mission, as it revolves around women's health, should focus on the diseases that really impact women's health. So if you read our mission statement, it's all about, not just breast cancer, but heart disease and renal disease and all kinds of things that impact women's health. And so when we began working on CM Assist, our CAD-like product for breast cancer, right? When you're building AI for mammograms and for breast cancer, you have to work hard to find all the things that are breast cancer. You got to train your AI on the true positives, but you also have to train your AI on the false positives because you want to find those things and throw them away so that you can improve your specificity, so that you can improve your performance overall on the product. One of the things that we were finding, scoring, and throwing away are breast arterial calcifications. So, and we were doing this for a long time until we took a step back and said, hang on a second, what else are these breast arterial calcifications indicative of? So we started reading publications and literature and looked at some of what was going on in the marketplace and realized that, these breast arterial calcifications have deeper ties into women's health. And so we began to say, okay, can we now, since we know they're tied to women's health, can we find these things and score them and turn that into a product and then take that product to market? And that was the genesis of CMangio. And so, when we got the Anvisa clearance in Brazil, part of that Anvisa clearance allows us to not only detect these breast arterial calcifications, but actually localize them, put them on a scorecard, show them to the radiologist, show them to the patient. And by the way, it's not just where we have Anvisa clearance, right? So we actually have this cleared in the FDA in the US as well. And in fact, we're the only company in the world that has this product that has cleared through the FDA, has cleared through Anvisa, and can actually produce these results for doctors, for patients, and allow them to have a more enriched conversation about the patient's health, and what next steps the patient should take now that they know they have breast arterial calcifications.
So that's pretty amazing, Kevin. And just one question before we get to the questions. We're getting a bunch of them now. We while we were chatting before the webinar, you mentioned the work that Solace is doing, and using CM Assist Angio. Could you share a little bit about that? Like, what is Solace Mammography using you for, and how? Why are they using it?
Yeah, so if you know Solus Mammography, I think they're the third largest provider of mammograms in the United States. So they're a very big player in the marketplace. And we got our FDA clearance on CMangio in October of last year. And very shortly thereafter began conversations and contract negotiations, and then signed a deal with Solus to provide CMangio to them so that they could in turn provide this to their patients, right? And again, going back to mission statements, if you follow the arc of Solus and you look at what they do, they care greatly about preventative care and preventative health care for their patients, right? Mammograms are not just images. These are a means of screening for disease. And so Solus has built their whole business around helping to screen and find patients and improve their outcomes in healthcare. And CMangio provides one more tool to strengthen that brand, to strengthen that offering. So yes, they're providing CMangio. Women who check in at the front desk for their mammograms, are being offered the opportunity. Hey, you're here for your mammogram. Would you like this to turn this into a 2-for-1 mammogram? Would you like the opportunity to run a CMangio and see if you have these breast arterial calcifications? And in large numbers, women are stepping up to the plate, opting in, and opting in with their credit card or their checkbook and saying, yes, I want this report. There are studies out there that show that women want this information, that they find it valuable to their healthcare. And so, yeah, this has been a winning partnership for us. And when you look at the trajectory, right, as you know, with software, you don't go from contract signing to 1 million opt-ins on day one, right? It's scaled. It has to roll out across different sites. Solus has sites all across the country. It has to be introduced to patients. But as we look at the growth that they've seen, it's been tremendous. Site after site that they roll this out to, the patients are opting in higher and higher numbers. So it's been good for them, I
Fantastic.
believe, making them more competitive in the markets that they're in, and as well providing their patients with that much more information.
That is amazing, and it's incredible to see people taking charge of their care, by paying what might in the scheme of things be a incremental amount. And of course it incentivizes folks like us to create more such solutions, right? And kind of sets that flywheel in motion. uh, there's a question, Kevin. There's a bunch of them. There's a question from Gautam Dalal. He's asking, are there any published results regarding how AI has helped in diagnosis of disease? So yeah, so if you could just shed some light on maybe some publications, papers that you guys have.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, if you, I, I want to say that's a softball to toss, but I mean, there are, I would say, easily at the top tier, hundreds of papers on how AI has impacted disease, and in every vein, not just in mammography, right? So we focus on mammography with breast cancer detection or with CMangio for breast arterial calcifications. And there are papers all over the place on how tools like this have improved outcomes. I mean, if you think about it from a screening mammogram perspective, as an example, when doctors read in batch, they may sit down at the end of the day and read all the day's mammograms, and it's a hard task. If you're sitting down to read 100 mammograms, and statistically there's one cancer per 100 mammograms, that it's hard to find those. And
Yeah.
if AI can be out there to say, look, as you're viewing these mammograms, here are the anomalies that we see, pay special attention to these things, it's there's no way it couldn't help patients. I mean, I think we published a paper, for example, on our breast cancer side that showed we were able to help find breast cancers up to 6 years earlier. So, as you know, early detection matters, and it matters not just in breast cancer. So, if you look at the work that CMangio does, early detection of breast arterial calcification, being able to have those
Yeah.
conversations with women younger, now that mammograms are available at age 40, if you can find these things and have these conversations sooner, the doctor and the patient can engage more closely on what they want to do next and how they want to get into this, rather than waiting till that patient is 50, 60, 70, and
Absolutely.
things have developed further, and it's harder. Now you're in a more reactive mode rather than a proactive mode.
Yeah. No, in fact, that ties in, very nicely to the next question, which is from somebody who doesn't want us to know their name. Uh, it says, can you share your experience and strategies? Yeah, this might just be one of my teammates. Can you share your experience and strategies for successfully converting a particularly challenging client to adopt your products?
Yeah, I mean, we're very, very proud of our performance. So for us, it's proof is in the pudding. It is not unusual at all. In fact, more common than not that we go into a client and we say, look, we have this tool, it performs brilliantly, it's FDA cleared. And we get the message back, well, we don't need it, or we're already doing fine, or how do I know it works on my patients? So oftentimes what we'll do is we'll say, look, give us 100 patients and let us run them. And let's compare our results to what you think they should be. And I think you'll be impressed by what you find. And, we did that study once with a major hospital. They gave us 100 patients and they thought they knew the true positive and false positive rates within those 100 patients. And it turns out that we found two cancers that they missed. They told us that these patients were negative. We
Wow.
identified two of those patients as positive. When we went back to them, they said, well, wait a minute, no, these are negative patients. And then we had said, well, let's re-examine this. So in the test set, when they were testing us on negative patients, we actually found two cancers that they thought were negative. So whether we're testing this on, for our breast cancer, or we're testing this on CMangio, real-time tests are fine with us, and we're happy to do it. For the real challenge, and we've talked about this with your team as well, is you want to always make sure though that you're asking the right questions. It's not
Mhm.
just is this positive or negative, right? Just because we found those two cancers didn't mean that, and they were supposed to be negative, didn't mean we got it wrong. So when you do analysis of the test sets, you actually have to make sure you're asking the right questions and peeling back the onion enough to make sure you understand the results. So
So,
we
Kevin,
work
on that
closely with our
point,
customers
sorry,
on that.
sorry, sorry, I'm cutting you there, but there's an interesting question that is very much related to that, where, in such, let's call them, pilots or validation studies, uh, are you also open to, like, conceptually, right? And do you think it's a good thing to do like head-to-head comparisons, uh, between like various vendors? Like, what's your philosophy and thinking on that?
We have done head-to-head comparisons with other vendors as well. I mean, of course, on Angio, there's nobody to go head-to-head with, and we're very happy to keep it that way. But on our breast cancer detection products, yes, we have gone head-to-head and done marvelously. Um, the challenge with head-to-head, it's fine if you do it in the setting of the hospital on the same data set, right? Because you have to be comparing apples to apples.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but even in that setting, when you go head to head, you have to understand the clinical goals of the hospital, right?
Yep.
Some products may have higher sensitivity but lower specificity, or the inverse. So you have to understand, is the hospital trying to detect more cancers to reduce recall rate? What are they trying to accomplish? so that you know what is the right tool for the clinic that you're working with.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful, right? Because every company also has their sweet spots and
Right.
their approach and all of that. So it's important to find that client product match, right? And super interesting. There's somebody who's really wanting to ask an incisive question. You can choose not to answer, but did RadNet reach out to you before buying Deep Health?
Well, I can say this. We've been in this market and in this industry for 10 years. I've had conversations with just about everybody and every CEO of every company, our competitors, our complementary products. So we've had lots and lots of
You
conversations.
need not say more. So, I think last couple of questions, Kevin, and these are more like relatively technical CM angio questions. So
Mm.
these are from BS. He asks, are breast arterial calcifications detected by CM angio? Do you think of them as incidental findings, or are they for a specific purpose? And on that point, are these done on, standard 4-view 2D mammos, or do they work on Tomo as well? And what do they work
Perfect.
on? And
Yeah.
do they also
So,
work on like analog is something I would be curious to know. I don't know if you
yeah.
even have
So
exposure to analog anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, so 2D and 3D, not a problem. The product is cleared on both FFDM and DBT. We don't really process analog images. We don't see them that often anymore, but we're cleared for 2D and 3D, and so that's what we stick with. And most modern sites that we would work with would have 2D and 3D. In the world of breast cancer screening, yes, breast arterial calcifications today are an incidental finding. What we find, however, that's really interesting is that while they're visible, depending on which paper or study you read, somewhere between 12 and 25% of the time, right? I mean, and a lot of that depends on age. On average in the market, we see them on mammograms. Let's call it 16 to 17% of mammograms will be breast arterial calcification positive. We ran an internal study. We looked at about 350,000 mammograms from 5 different institutions. These were academic hospitals, public hospitals, imaging centers. And we said, okay, if they're visible on 15, 20% of the mammograms, and they are an incidental finding that should be reported, how often are they reported? And we saw a reporting rate less than 2%. So, here you have something that's important for women's health that's visible on mammograms 15 to 20% of the time, that's being reported somewhere between never and 2% of the time. And that's really where CM angio fits in and creates power. And if we talk to the doctors, it's not that they can't see the breast arterial calcifications. Oftentimes they are. They're these big earthworm tram track like structures in the breast that you can see. It's just that when you're screening for breast cancer, you're in a tunnel vision. You're focused on what you're trying to find, and everything else gets excluded. So you have this really important incidental finding that you've been trained to ignore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we're hoping to change that.
No, that's again a very interesting note to end on, right? You've been trained to ignore an incidental
Exactly.
finding and focus on what may actually be treated as the bigger picture, but might not be. So on that note, thank you, Kevin. We try to end bang on time, and I think today is just one of those days where we can. So thank you so much. And everybody out there, please feel free to email us, find us on LinkedIn. We're all very active. We have a LinkedIn community and stuff, and yes, use AI in Mammo.
Thank you very, very
Thank
much. I
you.
appreciate it.